This episode is brought to you by Room 11, a private premier fan club built for creators, artists, and public figures to connect directly with their audience. Room 11 gives you full control. Creators can make money through subscriptions, tips, live streams, and exclusive content, even one-on-one video chats. Check out room11.com.
All right, guys, we have a very special guest, Holly Madison from The Girls Next Door, and I don't like saying that because she's made so much more of herself than The Girls Next Door, and that's what I want to kind of dive into. Holly, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. This is fun.
Of course, yes. It's so nice to meet you.
You too.
So you went from a reality show that all of the kids in my high school watched to so much more, and I think we can relate on the level of kind of being under the shadow a little bit of Hugh Hefner.
Totally.
And you've carved your own path. How did you do that? What was the path like for you?
Oh my God, I don't know. I tried to, and I don't know how successful I've been at it. I got to a point where I decided I had to start being organic and just going after, what felt good or what felt right in the moment or what I felt like I needed to say. So it's just kind of been like stumbling around, especially since I had kids, because back before I had kids, you can just kind of pick whatever you want to do in life. You can just be like, okay, I want to do a show in Vegas and I want to do my own reality show, and that's fine. But once you have kids, it's like I have to think about how things fit into my schedule, and it can't be too sexy or the kids might be embarrassed or something like that. So I feel a lot more like, even though I have more guidelines, I feel more like I'm stumbling around, if that makes sense.
I feel like the stumbling is a part of what I love about Girls Next Level, your podcast.
Thanks.
It's like you're just jazz musicians going and finding the flow and then connecting. That's what I love watching about it. It's just genuine.
Thanks.
Holly, one thing I love about you is that you're from a small town. You moved to LA to follow your dreams, and you successfully did that. What kind of advice could you give to somebody who is looking to do the same thing, or try to follow their dreams by moving to LA? Do you have any advice for them?
Well, these days it's so different because of social media. You can really carve out a niche for yourself and network just through social media. You don't really have to move until you're ready. So that's what I would recommend, is like trying to establish yourself online as much as possible if that's what you want to do before moving. Because back in the day, you'd move and you wouldn't know anybody. I came down here because I transferred colleges, so that was a little bit of a safety net. But also, you don't know anybody. It's a super expensive city. Back then, you had to do all these things just to even audition. You had to pay somebody to take your photo because there were no cell phone camera phones. You had to pay somebody to do whatever retouching you needed. You had to pay to get them printed out because nobody was going around to auditions with an iPad like they do now. So it was a whole process. So now I would just say try and do as much as you can over social media. Try to collab with people as much as you can before really making the move, because it's so expensive.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I read your book, I watched your show, and your story is so inspiring. And seeing where you started and where you are now, it's truly admirable.
Thanks.
Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate the journey that you've been on when you were with my father, and it felt like, according to you, you didn't know who you were at that point in time. And you were young and you were figuring it out. And it seems like now you're coming from a place of safety and authenticity and staying present. I think that's what Bridget said. And I think that those are really important things for the viewers to learn, is that you are coming from a place of comfort and what feels right. Do I have that right?
Yeah, I think so, 100%. I think when I was younger, there was just so much in the world I wanted to do, and I didn't really know who I was, and I was always biting off more than I could chew and things like that. And it's crazy just to think about how much of a blank slate. You don't feel like it at the time, because everybody when they're 19, you think you're a badass, you think you know everything, you think you know how the world works and who you are. But people are such blank slates. Of course, there's always going to be these people here and there who know exactly who they are and what they want to be at a young age. But I think back to when I worked at the Playboy studio and was going through Playmate applications and stuff, they'd all fill out this form. And, most of the people who were applying were under 25, some of them even younger, 19, 19, 20, 21, and there'd be the section that asks about hobbies. And so many of them would still be listing like their high school activities or like lessons they took in high school, because you're just still so young and such a blank slate and haven't lived life. And it's just crazy to think back on that. You know, because you feel like such an adult at that time. But I remember looking through all these applications, and even when I first tried out, you'd fill it out and you'd still write cheerleading, because that was just like 2 years ago. And, you know, I've been too busy in college to really take on any other hobbies.
Do you have any advice for yourself back then? And would you have done it differently?
I don't know how I could have really. Somebody asked me that the other day, what would your advice for your younger self be? And my advice would be hang on and take a lot of pictures. Because I go through my scrapbooks and I'm like, damn, I wish I had pictures of this, or I wish I had pictures of that to share, or whatever.
Yeah. I feel like last time we spoke, you're learning to enjoy some of those moments.
Definitely, yeah.
Were there any memories that stick out to you as fond times?
Yeah, all the time going over the show. I feel like now that I've written my book and kind of like told the truth about how the relationship was, now I can watch the show with Bridget. And especially now that we're getting into the later seasons when things really started to improve and were a lot more fun and a lot nicer, just at the mansion and the relationship, everything with the friendships. You know, you can look back and really like appreciate and embrace the good times too. And just off the top of my head, a couple of things, like anytime I see like a girls trip that we do, that would be really fun. Or I really loved your dad's like buffet and movie nights on the weekends. Like anytime they show a buffet movie scene on like a Friday or a Saturday, those scenes always feel the most real to me. Like I'm always surprised when I'm watching the show. You know, I always kind of try to watch it from the perspective of like imagining I'm a viewer who doesn't know anything, because that leads to good conversation too. But a lot of it, you know, you do feel like you're watching somebody else because it was so long ago, or maybe I wasn't in the moment when we were actually filming. But some of the scenes that feel really real and feel really like you're transporting back are like the buffet movie night scenes, for sure.
My wife is dying to know, were you in love with my father?
Of course. I mean, there's layers to it that were weird just because of the power dynamic. There was a touch of Stockholm syndrome. There was a touch of feeling, I want to say, backed into a corner, not necessarily by him, but by a lot of things right after I moved in. And that could be things from how everybody I knew outside the house reacted to my decision, made me feel backed into a corner. 9/11 happened less than 2 weeks after I moved in. That makes you feel backed into a corner. It's just all these little things. Watching other girls get kicked out of the house not long after I moved in. It were all these things that kind of made me feel, for lack of a better term, like backed into a corner.
Did it feel like you were in love with the man, but his actions were bizarre, or like...
Yeah, I mean, obviously the thing with like the multiple partners I didn't like, and he was always like, oh, it's not going to be like this forever, you know, this is just, you know, we're going to be together till the end, and there's not always going to be all these girls around, but yet they were always around.
Okay, but there's a part to that,
Yeah.
right? There's an ending to this where you say bye, and in the book you say bye and you're leaving, and then you find on the bed
Yeah.
a check.
No, he left his will out on the bed in
Okay.
a folder, like on my side of the bed.
Okay. And to me that says like, okay, I'm ready to be with just you, or is that how you took it?
I don't know. I mean, you could interpret it that way. I interpreted it, I mean, the most like basic way you can interpret it is he wants me to see it and maybe think, oh, well, this is in it for me. Maybe I won't leave. But it wasn't about money at that point or anything. It was about, we tried to have kids and that didn't work. It was about his temperament was changing a little bit. And at the time that was scary to me because we'd been through a relationship that I felt like was bad. And then it was getting way better. And then it was really good. And I started to see it getting bad again. And I've talked about it on the podcast. And a lot of people have written in who've had relatives who've had dementia. And they're like, that's a sign. And I'm not saying he ever got to a point where he was, you know, out of it. I don't know. But they say that that can be an early sign of dementia, is when people start to get mean, like something happens in their brain.
Yeah. I remember him getting mean.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
it would kind of come out of nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to get too much into the specifics, but I mean, yeah, maybe I should. But could you go over a little bit more of like, okay, it was bad and then it was getting better, and what did that look like day to day?
Oh, getting better. A lot of things changed. One, when he kicked out a lot of the girls, and then it was just three of us. Things were so much better because Bridget and Kendra and I got along a lot better. We all kind of felt like a team. Everybody was having fun. And then the show happened, and he was so into the show, he wasn't really motivated to like go out and like try and get other girls to come up to the bedroom anymore. So in essence, it felt like a monogamous relationship, and Bridget and Kendra were then just kind of there, like, you know, publicly as girlfriends, but not functionally. So everybody was just a lot happier. I mean, things weren't totally perfect 100% of the time, of course, but like I look back at like 2007, which was like a year before I left, and like things were really good then. Like when I was rewatching some of the episodes for YouTube, I was watching this episode where Bridget threw a beach party where her and Kendra and a bunch of the playmates went to go get surfing lessons. And me and your dad and a bunch of his friends took a bus down to the beach. And we were just on this bus, and everybody was having so much fun. And your dad's playing backgammon with his friends. And I'm up talking to, like, you know, John Baker and Eric Patricia and all those people. And nobody's insecure, and nobody's being weird, and nobody's being like, you have to come sit by me. And then we're at the beach, and then just we're all taking a group picture. And usually there was like a very strict hierarchy and like who stood by who next to your dad. And that was established before I was there. Yeah. But I still felt like I had to stick with it because I felt like if somebody took my spot, that meant something. You know what I mean?
It did mean something.
It really did.
What was it like being one of multiple girlfriends? Like, obviously you were the number one girlfriend, but what was that like? What was the dynamic?
Horrendous. There was nothing good about it. But what I was going to say about like being on the beach and taking that group picture is like your dad's standing there and there's like a couple girls around him and I'm right behind, and it doesn't, like, everybody's just in such a good place. Nobody cares about the hierarchy anymore. Everybody's just good. So I felt like for a minute we were at this place where like things were good, you know, and everybody felt secure.
Yeah, and people might not know about the hierarchies, but there were chairs that
And the reason I laugh is it wasn't just with girlfriends. It was your dad's friends too. And people would fight about it.
Oh man.
There were like little seats at in the movie theater room that I couldn't sit at because that was somebody
but you're
else's
his son.
spot.
You should have had like the best seat in the house.
I know.
And
it was so stupid.
And I mean, people would get so mad. And there were like pillows in front of the couch that were really coveted. And certain people would have like whole forts almost that they would make with the pillows. And God forbid, like you couldn't sit in the wrong spot and people would get so angry. And you know, everybody knew this is a place where there's new people coming all the time. There's always new girls coming to test for a playmate, and nobody gives you a rule book at the door. So there's going to be people who like sit in the wrong spot accidentally or whatever. But it was never treated like accidental. It was never like, oh, hey, I was sitting there. Is it cool? Do you want to sit like right next to me? No, people would get pissed like they had just been thrown off a boat.
Man.
It is interesting just to like see it as a kind of just a normal person looking at it and being like, this is a little silly, but because it was my father and people really wanted to be around him, and it was an honor to be up there, and I've been told it was the finest country club in Los Angeles. People they took it really seriously, and it's just kind of a part of Hollywood or something.
Like, don't get me wrong, I get wanting
cool
to sit in those seats.
Yeah.
But the extremes people, and not everybody, but there'd be like a handful of people who would just really get bent if they were not in that right spot.
Yeah. I remember I sat in Richard Band's seat, and Richard Band was my father's like favorite friend, and he sat right next to him, and my father looked at me and he said, that's Richard's seat. You have to move. And I was joking. It was like a joke. I was like, see, like I'm in his seat. Isn't that funny, Dad? And he got really upset. But as he, now that he's gone, I can look back. Like, I don't know if this has happened to you, but I have like rose tinted glasses. Like, what a amazing time. And kind of the negatives are drowned out a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like for me it was kind of the opposite, just because Girls Next Door painted such a butterflies and rainbow picture, and that's what people would always approach me with and like expect me to back up. So then I kind of went the opposite and was like, no, you guys, it was really like this. Yeah, but I can see more of a holistic view now, I feel.
Yeah, I've just like totally like repressed it or something. But looking back on, like, first of all the flack that you've gotten, you show a lot of courage to share your truth. And that's what an artist does, and that's what creators do, is we put our truth out in the world, and that takes courage. And so I'd like to say thank you for that. When
Thanks.
when he passed away, I felt all of the expectations and the shadow and everything, it just melted. It was just
Really?
gone.
That's so interesting.
And my life got a lot more interesting, and I made moves in my career that I don't think he would have liked. But it was like I was free.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hmm. So, do you think that he was a good boyfriend? And if he, and what is a good boyfriend to you now?
Oh my God. I feel like you can't even compare because the situation was just so weird.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I think he tried to be a good boyfriend in his own way, but I can't say somebody was a good boyfriend if they're like dating other people, or if they kind of like low key think it's fun to have girls fighting over them when I'm, verbalizing that this is like painful to me, and these, conflicts I'm in with the other women, are causing me a lot of issues. So I can't say that, but it was just such a weird situation. I feel like a good boyfriend now is somebody who's, faithful and, considerate of my feelings.
Yeah.
So when you left the mansion, what was life like outside of the mansion? Like, how did you find your path after all those years living in the Playboy Mansion, dating Hef? What was kind of the next step for you?
It was kind of a whirlwind because the second I was out, I was just in survival mode. Like, holy shit, how am I going to make money? And I had certain things I wanted to do that kind of fell in line. I wanted to do a burlesque show in Vegas. I wanted to do Dancing with the Stars. And I was really lucky. They just all kind of like fell in line right away, just by chance things. Like, I wanted to do Dancing with the Stars. And at first they were like, no, no, no. But somebody got injured right before the show aired. And they were like, who's been bugging us so much? Who wants to do this so bad that they would step in with none of the rehearsal time anybody else had? So they called me up. But it was so crazy because back in 2009, like 25 million people watched that show. It was huge. We had much more of a monoculture back then. So it was the perfect thing to be on if you wanted to promote something new, or if you were reinventing yourself in your career. And I was starting this show in Vegas right after. So I got to promote it on Dancing with the Stars. Yeah. And it was just like, such a great, I want to say lucky turn of events, but it was because I'd been bugging Dancing with the Stars so bad for so long that they knew who to call. So luck is just, it's preparation meets.
Right.
What's the other thing? What's the saying?
Preparation meets anxiety. Preparation meets no. Oh, I forget.
Preparation meets timing. I don't know what it is, but luck is like, it's a combo.
But you were putting yourself out there.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's like a part of, I think, your story of the Phoenix Rising. We're now with the Girls Next Level being on like the Times Square ad, and you're reaching such great numbers, and it makes me so happy.
Thank you.
That you've been doing it for so long, and you stayed public facing, and you've kept at it. Is that something that you think's important for the audience to hear? Or
yeah, I think so. I did go through a phase where I was not public facing though at all. I just, after my books came out, I had just decided I hated doing press and didn't want to do anything publicly, and I thought I was, gonna be a ghostwriter or something. Like, I just wanted to, completely not do anything publicly. And then the pandemic happened and I was bored. So I started a YouTube and a TikTok, and I felt like I was connecting with people so much more organically over those mediums than before. And it got to a point where I don't even dislike doing press anymore, because now that I have a YouTube, it doesn't work the same way. Like, the press can't really twist I mean, they can try, but they can't really like twist your words or, have these gotcha moments with you anymore that you can't respond to. Like, now I could just jump on YouTube and be like, hey, no, this is how it really went down, and people are going to believe what they want to believe, but it feels good to have that outlet. Whereas before, there wasn't anything like that, really.
Right. And with
before
social media, you get to own your own content. So, like, with your YouTube channel, with your Instagram, like, you are in charge of your own press, which completely
100%.
changes it. So that's amazing. Yeah.
that's kind of what I'm hearing, is that like having safety and the ability to be authentic and not your favorite song is. I don't relate to desperation. You know, having that mindset is really important, I think.
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's next for Holly Madison?
I mean, we're going to be doing the podcast for a couple more years. I have season 3 of the Playboy Murders coming out on May 5th, and another season of Lethally Blonde coming after that. I'd love to keep doing true crime. I really enjoy telling those stories.
That's
How do you
amazing.
blend, so yeah, like as my father and as my father's ex-girlfriend, we care about like what we really love, which is maybe true crime.
Yeah.
And at the same time, people want the girls next door and
Yeah.
they want the mansion stories. And how do you, when you're trying to break away from that, how do you follow your passion and what you love, and while also realizing people want to hear what they want to hear?
Yeah, I used to feel like if I wanted to do anything else, I had to break away and totally like never talk about Playboy stuff again. But that doesn't really work because people will never let you let go of it. Like anytime, like I really feel for Kendra because the clips I see of her is she's trying to do something different and doesn't want to talk about it. But I know what it's like to try and do press and switch the narrative, and you can't because the only thing people want to ask you about is the Playboy stuff. So I know how hard that is. But I feel like it doesn't have to be either or anymore. I kind of think of my career as like a Venn diagram where there's like 3 different bubbles and they're all different colors and they're different subjects. And one of the bubbles is kind of all the retro stuff, like the Girls Next Door stuff and the Playboy stuff and everything like that. And that can be one hot pink bubble over here. But then I can do the true crime bubble and it also overlaps, and the Playboy Murders is right in the middle. But I can do other shows that have nothing to do with Playboy, you know.
And how can we help you, you know, with following your passions with true crime? Is there a show that you want to talk about, or?
Yeah. Well, the Playboy Murders is coming out May 5th. And one of the stories is about a woman who was working for Playboy Casting. That's our premiere episode. And she was found dead, apparently of an overdose, but people have questions, and we get into that mystery. And she worked for Playboy Casting after I was there. So this is a really recent case. It was 2017. And then Lethally Blonde season 2 comes out after that. I don't have a date yet, but usually it comes out right after Playboy Murders. And I want to do a show that's Vegas themed too, like a Sin City Murders or something, because there's a lot of cases that really intrigue me. So we'll see what the network wants to do. That's the only frustrating thing about TV is you're so dependent on like what the network wants. You can't just like do it yourself, like podcasting or YouTube or whatever. But
That's what's so beautiful about your guys' podcast. You
can just do it.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
So
what
have you
we
always
love.
been into true crime, or did you kind of like fall into this passion while starting these shows?
I've been into it since I was a kid because I grew up on Unsolved Mysteries,
Oh,
and I was
that's
always
right,
so intrigued with that show. So I've always been interested in stories that have like kind of like a morbid or mysterious element underneath. I feel like even as a kid, like being super interested in old Hollywood, I was always drawn to the stories where like the actress died young or something mysterious or unsolved happened that nobody ever really figured out. So that's always been a topic I've really been into.
And
Are
speaking
you-
of that, didn't you say Marilyn Monroe played a big part into your inspiration behind like moving to Hollywood? Do you still feel that same
100%.
draw? Yeah.
I was always so into her story. My aunt gave me a set of Marilyn Monroe paper dolls for Christmas when I was 10, and it had like a little bio of her on the back, and it had all her outfits from so many of her movies and like the title and the date of the movie. So it was like being given like a Barbie doll, but she had a story and she had a mystery, because nobody's ever really quite come to terms with her death. I feel everybody always wants to have questions about it. So
Yeah.
So the mystique, and maybe you had a mystique about my father, then you show up
yeah,
there.
that whole world for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Are you dating right now?
No, I just ended like a 6-year relationship. So
Was it like a serious relationship off and on?
it was
or-
serious, but it was also very off and on.
Okay.
But it was time. I'm not like,
I feel like we've talked about this.
yeah, it's been a long breakup coming. Like we had a
Yeah.
big breakup about a year ago, and then I think we kept like falling back in together because that was like our comfort zone.
And why
you know.
why did it end? Would you mind sharing?
He was on dating apps behind my back.
Oh, no. Yeah, that's never good.
No. And the worst part about it is just, okay, the cheating is bad. Like cheating is never good, whatever. But the judgment behind it, like the fact that he's like a public figure and he thinks he can be on a dating app with a verified profile, blue check mark, his name, his photos, his jobs in the description, linked to his Instagram, and yet he thinks he's sneaky. And this wasn't even Raya. This was like Tinder and Bumble. So like every girl in Vegas is sending me screenshots like, isn't this your man? So it's just like the judge, like I can't be with somebody with that warped judgment.
No.
Are you kidding me?
No, you're better off without him for sure. So are you just taking a break right now? Or are you ready to jump back in?
Kind of. Like, I'm a romantic, so I definitely want to meet the one, but I'm not interested in, like, dating or being with a guy that I think is, like, hot or good in bed, because I don't have time for it. Like, this was also one of the problems with the last guy is, besides the bigger issues, even trying to, like, wedge him into my life was hard because, like, I don't want to introduce my kids to anybody until I'm engaged, and I don't, like, nothing in my life was overlapping up to that point. It's like he was over here, got 3 jobs over here, my kids are over here, and since, you know, the podcast is a lot of adult topics and stuff, I can't like work or edit in front of my kids really, so it's like it's so hard to fit everything in because nothing overlaps. So that was an issue as well.
Do you have any regrets posing for Playboy, posing nude, or what? How do you view that now?
No, I was always a fan of the Playmate pictorials. I always wanted to do it. I liked all our pictorials. It was a dream come true to do them. So, I mean, if I'm going to be super picky, I might go back and be like, oh, I wish I would have sucked in a little more here, or I wish I would have done my hair a little different. But other than that, no, I always want to do the pictorials and I always liked them. And
What do you tell your children when they're like, Mom posed nude?
well, they don't know yet, and they are very sheltered. They go to a very sheltered school. I don't know. I mean, they're so conservative. Like, my son saw that I posted a picture in the gym where you can, like, see part of my stomach, and he was so horrified. And he was like, delete, delete, delete. And I was like, oh, boy.
So no thirst traps allowed. No.
I'm not saying I
he's your
never
manager.
post a thirst trap, but like he looked over my shoulder and saw like the gym one and was not into it. So I try to be careful.
How old is he again?
8.
8. Oh man, he's starting early.
Very protective.
That's so sweet though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So people always ask me like, how are you going to explain that to your kids? But I feel like with parenting, you never know until it happens. You know, your kids are always such individuals. You're watching them develop who they are day after day. It's kind of like a mystery box. Like, I think you always think you're going to get a kid that's like a lot like you, and maybe they are. But it's like a mystery surprise pack. You don't know who this human is. It might come in a shell that you kind of recognize, but you don't know who this human is. And each phase, you know, you can read the like what to expect in the first year or whatever, and all the milestones and stuff, but you never know until you get there.
And once they're old enough to kind of understand it, they'll be so proud of your journey, of everything that you've accomplished and all the amazing experiences you've had. You know, I feel like there's going to be
I
a
hope
little
so.
confusion
I
at
mean,
first, but
yeah.
then once they understand it, they'll be like, wow, my mom is awesome.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, it's definitely, there's a lot there, so.
But speaking of, what was like one of the things that you were most proud of with your career?
I think writing my first book, just because writing a book in general, as you know, is such a chunk of work. And I loved doing my live show in Vegas because I really wanted to do something like that. Everybody thought I wouldn't be able to do it. I did it for 4 years. It opened at like the worst time you could have ever opened a show in Vegas because it was like right when the Great Recession started, but it killed it and it was amazing. And that was one of my favorite jobs I've had. So probably those two off the top of my head, but I'm sure I'll look back on what I'm doing now and be really proud of it too.
Would you ever do another Vegas show?
I always say probably not, but only because of the scheduling. Like, I'm not Adele, so I can't just cherry pick. I'm going to do that weekend and that weekend. Like, for me to make a show work, I'd have to be in it, like, all the busy times, all the days of the week, maybe 2 nights off. You know, that's how it was when I had my show anyway. And just being a mom and co-parenting, I can't really fit it in. But as far as, like, that was a fun job that I loved, I mean, yeah, that'd be amazing. But schedule-wise, I can't.
How do you balance the hustle of being public facing and ambitious with parenting?
I try to remind myself, I mean, everything in my life is like blocked off. Like, there's a chunk of time here, a chunk of time there, a chunk of time there. And I just try to be really present with the kids. And I think that's easier for me to do as somebody who's co-parenting and with the kids 50% of the time rather than maybe somebody who has their kids with them all the time. So I just try and be really present and remind myself to enjoy the moment. And then when I'm not with my kids, I really pack everything else in. And as far as balancing it all, I just try to be really prepared. Like last night, I had a few extra hours. So I was like, okay, are all my clothes out for the press tour? Is everything packed for the spring break trip? Are all the activities planned? Like, do I have everything in my backpack for this? Do I have everything loaded up? Because I'm taking the kids to Disney for a night this weekend. I'm like, do I have everything for that? I think just being prepared is like the only thing you can do.
So my father would have been very prepared. He had everything. He had a schedule that was very rigid and very consistent. Have you borrowed any of that from him? Do you like map out your days like that at all?
I mean, I think it comes pretty naturally. Like, I think that was something your dad and I had in common, and I really like the structure to a point. Like, I would have liked to be able to maybe go out and do a few things here and there extra. But I do like routine, and I do like structure, and I do like being prepared for things.
I always found it so interesting that he was promising a life of safety and luxury and ease. And then you get there, and it's like survival. It's like Survivor Island for the girls.
It totally feels like that. Like, when I moved in, there were 7 girlfriends, and that set of 6 that I moved in with were, a lot of them were kind of ready to leave. Like, they'd had centerfolds that had come out, or they had like found other guys or whatever. So I kind of saw everybody leave and get replaced in the first couple months I was there, and some of them got kicked out. Like, they would be out and like their stuff was packed and like sent out the back gate, you know.
And why? Did they ever say, did she say the wrong thing, or?
Oh, with that girl in particular, she had gone home to visit family, but it was really to see a boyfriend, and one of the other girls narked her out. So she was like, her stuff was packed up and like sent out.
Doesn't it seem like the safe thing to do would just be like, okay, I'm here, there's opportunity here, like learn the rules, don't see other guys? Wouldn't that be the play?
Yeah, you would think. But I think it's easier for me to say because I'm not attracted to a ton of people. And everybody else there was a girl in her 20s who was like, there's celebrities all around. Like, we're going out to nightclubs and they're meeting celebrities and they want to fuck all these guys and they want to go out and they want to party. And I was just never like a big partier. So that's easy for me to say. And I think not easy for everybody else. Also, other girls, I think, seeing by like who they dated, some of them, I think they thought they were going to like social climb and like jump up. Like, oh, I'm going to jump from this to Kid Rock, or I'm going to jump from this to Eminem. Like, it would never go anywhere.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Is there a lot of like cattiness in the house between the girls? I feel like if everybody's kind of dating the same guy and y'all are kind of all wanting the same thing of like the centerfold, how did you handle all the different personalities of all the women?
Cattiness isn't even the word. Like I said, like I mean, just to keep going on that example of that one girl that got kicked out after I moved in, just because I was not involved in that at all. The other girl narked her out, and she was like all gleeful about it. And I just moved in at the time, and she goes, I think she's going to be DNA'd. And I just stepped into this weird world. I don't know the rules. So I thought, DNA? Like, I thought that meant they were going to take like a DNA swab and like do something. And I'm like, what does that mean? And she goes, do not admit, like banned from the property. And I was like, whoa, this is so dramatic.
Yes, definitely.
I remember I went to Disneyland with everyone, and they were all so sweet, but there was like a group, and it was maybe you, Holly, and Kendra over there, and then Zoe and somebody else were over here, and we were in the limo, and it was like divided. It was like and they were just chatting like little cats about the girls, and it was like, as a kid, I thought it was so much fun. It was like, oh yeah, this is like Gossip Girl, you know. I was having a good time, but it was just nasty.
So you would be in the limos with all the girls going to Disney World?
Yeah, we did that.
So
we
fun.
did that once or twice.
Like a party bus.
I love that.
It was really nice because in Disney, I can't experience Disneyland the same way anymore.
No.
Well, okay, come on. I mean, I love Disneyland, but like if I ever do it, I have to cut the lines. And we had like a personal tour guide who took us everywhere, and we would get to ride the ride over and over again. There were no lines, and then we'd sit, and it was the best way to experience Disneyland, in my opinion. Yeah, My friend really loves Disney. He hyped it up, and then I got there and I was like, I like my Disneyland more. I like Anaheim Disneyland more.
Well, I feel like it's special. That's the one we grew up with. And also it's the one that's, that was Walt's project. And because it's so small, every little detail has to matter. Like the Fantasyland here is so intricate and so detailed. And then you go to Disney World and it's kind of like the Walmart version. It's just like so much more space. Everything's further apart. There's not as much small, intricate detail. It's just like the supersized one.
Mm-hmm. So when you experience Disneyland, do you do the private tours or?
When I'm with my kids, I do. Like I'm taking them this weekend. We're going to go on Sunday. I don't get the tour guides for myself because they're so expensive. And I've been to the park so many times. A lot of times I go not to do rides, but just to like shop and eat with a friend or just like be lazy or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, that's fun. So you've got Disneyland, and then you've got Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
Where else are you heading this year? Anywhere fun?
I don't have any plans yet.
Yeah. Well, Hawaii will be amazing.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't experienced Kauai yet, but I love Hawaii. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So do you have any tips on how do you study when you do the podcast and you're looking at yourself and thinking, oh, I could make this better, or do you just practice, or
like in the edit?
When you're doing the podcast, how do you improve?
Well, I think because I edit it as well, I have that hat on as well while we're recording, so I kind of have this feedback loop. Like if I feel like things are getting slow or this isn't the kind of tea that people want. And I look at the comments to an extent. I pulled away from the comments because when you look at the comments too much, and Bridget was going through this too, you get to a point where you feel like you can't say anything because there's always going to be somebody that pops in with a well actually and tries to prove you wrong or something like that. But from the feedback I was getting, I could tell what people wanted to hear. So if things start to lag, and then when I watch the episode that we're commenting on and make the notes about it, I always have that in mind too. Like, what kind of stories does this make me think of? What do I think people are going to want to hear? How is this paced? And I usually try to come up with a theme. Some episodes are easier than others for the portion of the episode we're talking about that's above and beyond, just because I don't want it to be just like, oh, look at this cute show, we're going to go back and tell you what happened. Like, that's not what people want. You have to tell them that a little bit so their memory's jogged, so they're like, oh, this is the scene we're talking about. But what people really want to hear is like the behind the scenes stories, or like some kind of bigger thing that was going on, or a bigger theme that they can relate to.
How do you view Kendra's kind of, just in my opinion, expressing her honest self, which is, I regret being at the mansion. She regrets just
Did she
doing
say
the
she
whole thing.
Regrets it specifically?
I'm not the person to ask this,
Yeah.
but I got a call from my mother-in-law, and she was very upset about Kendra, and it just felt like she was stating her truth.
Yeah, I don't know. I saw some clips from that interview. I have a bunch of different feelings about it. I feel like on one hand, yeah, it was a difficult situation. It's hard to navigate, especially when it's in the public eye, and for the rest of your life, you're kind of dealing with everybody else's opinions and expectations. So I totally empathize with her on that level. And I don't know how each thing she did makes her feel and what her thoughts about it are. But then sometimes I wonder too, because and this is just from my perspective, again, I don't know how she really feels about it. But from my perspective, Bridget and I had a harder time at the mansion. We were there earlier for several years where we had to deal with a lot of bullshit and drama. And from my perspective, Kendra had a much easier time and so much more support when it came to launching a career for herself and things like that. And of course, I saw, what was happening in her life after. And I have to wonder, was it Playboy that ruined your life? Or was it all the years of selling yourself and your family out to the tabloids every month for a new story and working underneath a very toxic and manipulative executive producer and throwing away old friendships because you thought a feud would be a good tabloid story that day? Was it Playboy that ruined your life, or was it all that stuff? And maybe I'm being an asshole saying that. I don't know. Maybe I have not walked in her shoes. But just from my perspective, I'm I don't know.
Yeah.
But then again, she has different tastes as me. I was somebody who always was a fan of the Playmate pictorials and wanted to be a Playmate. So when I look back on Posing Nude, I'm happy about it. But I think Kendra, when I met her, she seemed like a girl who really wanted to like make a living being the hot girl, which is fun. A lot of girls want to do that, but I don't know if she had a Playboy pictorial specifically in mind.
Yeah.
So I don't know like what her taste is when it comes to that kind of thing.
When I think about Kendra, I think of it as if I got a really cushy job, and let's say I'm making $1 million a year, and everybody is saying, well, why isn't she happy? Well, why doesn't she like that $1 million, this opportunity? But the boss is really abusive, or the boss sucks, and you don't like the job. And I don't understand why people wouldn't get that, like, wow, there's this incredible opportunity that she was given, but like the journey like sucked. Like, that's not surprising to me.
Yeah, me either. And I think unfortunately she just has not had a lot of supportive people in her life. There's been a lot of drama with her mom. I think, Kevin Burns, the producer, was extremely manipulative. Like, he was very big on like doing whatever he could to keep her on TV for years and years, but I don't think he had her best interest in mind as a human being. And when you're on TV too, you can attract friends who are your friends because they want to be that sidekick on the show. And I'm not saying that about any of my sidekicks I've had on my spinoffs, but I look at her and I wonder, I'd really like to see Kendra reconnect with her brother. We talked to her brother on the podcast, and he just seems, so positive and so smart and so caring. And I don't know where their relationship stands, but I think they could really be a good support system for each other.
Yeah. I just want to see her happy.
Yeah.
And I feel like holding on to the past is not like a healthy way to move forward.
Yeah. I think she's still dealing with, when she goes out and is forward facing and is trying to present herself, dealing with everybody else's like expectations on her past. And I can relate to that.
Yeah.
You just got to fight through and get to a point where you're okay with it finally,
100%.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about Playboy and kind of your journey of getting here. What's something like that people don't know about you? Like, what's a fun fact about Holly that...
I don't know, because I feel like I'm talking for an hour a week on a podcast and on my YouTube, and I've written 2 books, and I've just spewed so much. I don't know, because Bridget told me she got, spoiler alert, Bridget told me she got that question. I was trying to think, what is something about me that people don't know that would even be remotely interesting? I don't know. I feel like if I bring something up, it would just be so boring. I can't even think, like, what have I not mentioned anywhere?
I don't know.
I
I
don't
feel
know.
like you're always so in the public. You kind of share everything.
I kind of do, yeah.
Is there a chance that you and Kendra and Bridget make like a Girls Next Door part 2?
I don't think so, because I don't know what that would be. We were actually, during the pandemic, we were talking with a producer who wanted me, Bridget, and Crystal to do something. And we were shooting separately for a sizzle reel, just like interviews about what was going on in our lives. And I still to this day don't know what we would have done on that show or what it would have been. It was just kind of like, it was the pandemic, nothing was going on, so I'm like throwing spaghetti at a wall to see what will stick. Like,
It's
I'll
not
give
the
anything
same.
a chance at this point. Because Girls
Yeah.
Next Door was really a show about a lifestyle. And shows about lifestyles aren't so much relevant anymore because you can see anyone's lifestyle on social media. But it was a show about a lifestyle that people were intrigued by, and, it was just fun.
With Kevin, he was the executive
The executive producer, yeah.
and he was, I think, very close to my father. I'm kind of shocked to hear that he had an other side to him. What was that? Because when I spoke to him, he talked about toys and he talked about aliens.
Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong. There's a side to Kevin that I loved. Like, Bridget and I'll get into this on the podcast. Sometimes we'll be talking about things and I'm like, as much as I talk shit about Kevin and how manipulative he was, like, I still miss like dropping in on his office during a day and just shooting the shit. Because we did have a really fun friendship. He was a really smart guy. He was a huge nerd, a huge collector. And when I say nerd, that's a positive. Like, I'm a nerd. he was a huge collector. He had the funniest sense of humor. Like, do you remember on Wednesday night your dad would have card night, and that was always like turkey night, and the kitchen would make Thanksgiving dinner? Like, Kevin would come over. Like, once the show was started and we stopped going out to clubs late on Wednesday night, it would just be card night, and then the night would kind of end. But Kevin would come stop by and meet me in the dining room for turkey night on Wednesdays. And we would open up my computer and just look up YouTube. And this was back when YouTube had just started. So there's like only a handful of videos on there that were viral. And we'd look them up and just die laughing at like robot chicken clips or like random viral clips. And I just really miss those times, and I so badly wish I could have that friend back, but without the manipulative puppet master side, because he really thought, I think, that he's smarter than everybody else. He's the paternal figure in this girls next door family. Like, he used to brag to other producers that worked under him that we were his little puppets and he could get us to do whatever we wanted. I completely blame him for my friendship with Kendra exploding and blowing up, and it was just bad and it was toxic. And he just thought, I'm giving you a chance to be on TV, so I'm going to portray you however I want. And when I left the mansion too, he really was angry and wanted to blame me for the girls next door disbanding, because like everybody knew Kendra was leaving and they were going to do a spinoff with her. Everybody knew that Bridget was going to eventually leave, and he put her on that Beaches show, but he expected me to stay, and then Girls Next Door was going to turn into like me, your dad, and all the girls I was working with at the studio that were becoming Playmates. And when I left, he was just so angry. He would go on the e-message boards and just like spread lies about me that weren't true and kind of like blame me for the whole show imploding and everything. So we ended up making up, and he produced
That sounds like someone who's hurt to me.
Oh yeah, 100%. But like, grow up. He was like 60. You know, it's crazy.
So have you and Kendra rekindled at all, or
No.
do you think you will, or is it?
I don't know. I mean, it would be nice to be on good terms,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I don't think we need to. I'm kind of just like
Happy with life,
Yeah.
and I get that.
So you've been reading that the Butler or the Valet
Oh my
book.
God. The
Yeah.
Dark Secrets of Playboy. This is wild. And like, we can't get through the book. Bridget and I are reading it on our slumber parties
It's
on
fake,
Patreon.
right? It's got to be fake.
I don't know what it is. Okay, first of all, it's so poorly written. It's like he wrote two different manuscripts and then smashed them together with, because you'll hear like Dorothy Stratton coming to the mansion, and it's kind of a sweet story. And then halfway through the book, she arrives again for the first time out of nowhere, and it's like a sinister version. And I'm like, nobody edited this. It's just he slapped two manuscripts together. And some of the stories are so crazy. And on one hand, I have to have an open mind and be like, okay, well, it was a different time. I wasn't there. Like, we kind of like preface every comment we have on it. Well, you know, could have happened, I guess. But some of it is so weird. And then he's so mean to Sandra, who was your dad's main girlfriend at the time. And it's just awful.
Yeah.
But it is the most bizarre, salacious, craziest mansion memoir I have read, bar none.
So what have you learned that you think is actually true? Is there any juice, any tea?
Well, I don't know what could be true. I mean, he was
Yeah.
definitely there because he describes the property in such accurate detail.
But he happens to be there like during the most opportune moment, like
and it's like he
there was
walks-
a rape scene that he was like right there and saw, and
Really
it just happened to be him.
Graphic, tastelessly written rape scenes
Yeah.
that are traumatic. And then, like, nobody does anything about it. It's like, oh, let's go drive this girl to a hospital and leave her at the door or something. And it's just like, what? Who are all these bystanders? And then it's just I don't even know where I was going with that.
I have
The whole
somewhere.
thing is so nuts. Yeah.
I have somewhere. Well, for one, his motive could be money, and it brings me to The Secret Lives of Playboy, which was really juicy tea on the Playboy Mansion, and I watched it with my wife, and I was in tears, and then I was like, oh my God, and then I was trying to figure out what was real and what wasn't, and now that I'm looking back on it, it's like, well, they were paying these women to say something juicy.
Secrets of Playboy didn't pay anybody.
No.
No. Mm-mm.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I tried to get paid. Not that I have to be paid to say a certain thing, because I wasn't saying anything different than I'd said in my book, but I didn't want to do Secrets of Playboy because I'm like, if I come out and do this, because this was before we were doing the podcast, I'm like, if I come out and do this, I'm just going to get dragged in the media again. Like, it's just going to be unpleasant. Like, I don't want to do this again. So that's why I asked to be paid. And they were like, absolutely not. We're not paying anybody. It's unethical. Like, A&E got caught paying somebody for some other documentary that had to do with like white supremacy, and it was a big scandal. So like, they don't pay anybody for anything. But it's interesting about Secrets of Playboy because I watch it and like some stuff I believe and some stuff I really don't, but I feel like I can't say because people say that to me about stuff and they weren't there and they don't know.
I feel like I'm so gullible that I've just like, as a rule, I don't believe anything now. Cause like, I like get so moved by things.
I feel like I've had that journey in my life too,
Yeah.
about just taking what people say at face value, because I'm on the spectrum. So I take, or when I was younger,
I am too.
take things people say as like dead ass serious, and I think they mean what they say. And I think that was kind of an issue in your dad's and my relationship too, is he's very much a romantic talker, and I think for him he's kind of serious, but he's also kind of role playing and playing house a little bit. But me as a 22-year-old girl, I'm taking everything he says dead serious, and now I almost overanalyze and second guess things people say to like a ridiculous perspective, because naturally I'm not that way and I've been burned by it.
When it comes to the secret lives, I just have to like look at my own experience and what you and Bridget are saying, and I'm just listening to kind of the allegations, and I just think I didn't see any of that. It doesn't match my experience, that's all. But I am really interested in like, did my dad have video cameras, and did my dad have like audio? Did he bug the place? I could kind of like, I don't want to, I'm wondering.
I don't know. I mean, I think there were definitely like videotaping that people knew about going on in the bedroom in the 70s, not when I was there. And Bryant Horowitz, one of the butlers from back in the day, was saying that there was this thing in the library, but he was describing it like it was an ancient artifact that wasn't used anymore. And it was like a button in that bar, that dry bar you could open up. There was a button in there that was like a hidden recording thing from like back in the day, but I don't know. But this book, The Dark Secrets of Playboy, they act like every room is completely bugged and there's a secret surveillance room where people go and review all the footage. I'm like, I don't know what room that was supposed to be. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming, spilling the tea, sharing your life.
Problem.
More than Playboy.
Yeah.
That's what you are. I love it. So proud of you. So happy.
Thank you. I'm proud of you too.
Thank you. So if you want one truth to give to the listeners that you'd say throughout your life you've unlocked, what's the secret or the truth that you've found?
One thing I've been thinking about a lot lately is how, when I was younger, I thought I was very much a know-it-all. I was always like an academically smart kid. I thought everything was black and white and there was an answer to everything. And the older you get, the more you realize there's 5 sides to every story and they're all true and everything is a million different shades of gray. And the more you know, the less you know. And it's just crazy. And I feel like that's a big theme in a lot of the projects I'm doing now, is just trying to get like all sides of the story and like the good and the bad. And
thank you for sharing your truth. It's been an honor to
Thank
have
you.
this.
Thanks for having me.
Discover your dream.